5 for a blind date. What this incredible single dad CEO discovered changed their lives forever. Jack couldn't believe it. For just $5, he was stepping out of his comfort zone and into a world that promised connection. The flyer fluttered like a flag of hope in his hand, advertising a blind date event that combined love, laughter, and a chance to meet fellow neighbors. Here he was, a single dad struggling to keep up with his demanding startup, feeling like a ghost in the vibrant heart of Maplewood. But for his daughter Lily, he'd fight through his fears. Her hopeful eyes always lit up when he spun tales of adventure, and tonight, perhaps he could add a new chapter to their life story. As he walked into the venue, laughter and lively chatter washed over him like a warm embrace. Elegant banners whipped around, promoting local businesses, and the buzz swirled around the room. Jack took a deep breath, chest tight with anticipation, as he found a spot near a makeshift stage. Conversations flowed like a river, echoed in earnest dreams and shared struggles. People looked ready to connect, just like him. The first genuine smile appeared on his face when he locked eyes with a petite woman sharing her passion for painting. "It's about capturing that little moment of beauty, you know," she said, her enthusiasm infectious. Jack felt a sense of kinship. This was someone chasing her dream. It was the first time that night he felt arms around him, figuratively, of course, creating a bubble of comfort and warmth. Yet just as the laughter reached a crest, he heard a sound that chilled him to the bone. Mark, the polished entrepreneur, strolled in like he owned the place. "This," he scoffed, "is a desperate attempt to forge false connections." The words dripped with contempt, leaving a bitter taste in the air. Jack's heart raced as insecurities twined around him like a vice. What if he was right? What if this was all a farce? The laughter faded suddenly, swallowed by the weight of doubt. But in that moment of tension, Jack felt a shift. The spark of connection from before hadn't been extinguished. Instead, it started to ignite something within him. As he scanned the room, he noticed others: a single dad, a recent divorcee, a fellow entrepreneur, all holding their breaths at Mark's words. Jack realized they shared something powerful: resilience. They were all striving to rewrite their stories. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack took a step forward, heart pounding. "You might think we're desperate, but we're driven by love," he declared, his voice resonating with conviction. Stories flooded into the air, laughter erupted, and the tension evaporated like morning mist. They were not broken connections. They were threads woven together by shared experiences. As the night came closer to its end, Jack felt hope blooming around him, but nagging questions lingered. Would these connections endure beyond tonight? As they said their farewells, a sense of uncertainty draped over him. Could they transform their struggles into triumphs together, fighting against the doubts that weighed them down? In the soft glow of the night, the real question echoed in Jack's mind: was he brave enough to be the glue that held this beautiful, fragile dream together? Jack stepped out of the event, the cool night air wrapping around him like a comforting scarf. The buzz of laughter and conversation still hummed in his ears, but outside, the world felt different. He glanced down at his phone. The time showed it was late, and Lily would be asleep. He should have been home wrapping her in stories, but instead, he had thrown himself into a sea of unfamiliar faces and raw emotions. As he walked toward his car, he couldn't shake the feeling of possibility. The connection he felt tonight, a tether to something greater, something hopeful, lingered like the scent of rain-soaked earth. He replayed the moments in his head: the woman painting pictures with words, her bright smile cutting through the noise. Driven by love. Those words echoed, empowering him. Once inside the car, he started the engine and took a moment to breathe. Was it really worth opening his heart again? The fear of rejection bubbled to the surface. But then he remembered the other attendees, their faces lighting up as they shared their truths. He tapped his fingers against the wheel, a small smile breaking through. He could do this. He could reach out beyond his little world. When he got home, the house was silent, save for the soft ticking of the clock. He tiptoed into Lily's room, soaking in her peaceful form curled up under a blanket. She looked so small, so innocent. Memories of the night flooded him again, and a notion bloomed inside. He wanted more for her than the rigid confines of his busy life. He wanted her to feel connections, to know laughter over shared dreams. In that moment, Jack made a quiet vow. He would be more than just a dad, he would be a connector, someone who brought people together. The next day, ideas swirled in his mind as he sipped coffee at his desk. What if he organized meetups? A casual coffee shop gathering for parents like himself? They could share stories, just like they did at the event. The thought buzzed like electricity. It felt right. Jack scribbled notes on a notepad, eyes gleaming with excitement. Would it work? With determination brewing in his spirit, he sent a message to a few of the connections from the night before. Hi there. I really enjoyed talking with you at the event. How about we get together for coffee? I'd love to keep the conversation going. He hit send and felt a twinge of anxiety, but also an exhilaration. Gradually, replies began to pour in. Yes, and excited emojis punctuated the thread, washing away his doubts. As the days passed and their plans solidified, Jack's anticipation grew. He was not just planning a meetup, he was building a community. However, as the date of their first gathering approached, an old wave of doubt crashed over him. What if they all saw him as a pretender? Had he overstepped? It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure if he should leap into the unknown. Would they even show up? Would this community take root or wither away? Jack's heart raced at the thought. But in the quiet of his office, amidst the chaos of work, he clung to one burning truth: the desire to connect was stronger than his fear. This was his chance to turn hope into reality. When the day finally arrived, Jack stood in front of the cafe, hands sweaty and heart fluttering. He took a deep breath, emotions flickering like candlelight. Could this be the moment that stirred something wonderful? Would he find courage in the company of others? Behind him, he heard laughter, a familiar voice. He turned, and there was the petite woman from the event, her smile lighting up the place. More shadows joined, laughing, hopeful. And just like that, Jack knew he wasn't alone anymore. A wave of warmth washed over him, washing away his fears. But as he opened the door to the cafe, he felt a surge of anxiety again. What would unfold inside? The moment had come, but would it lead to the connection he truly wanted? As Jack pushed the cafe door open, the warm aroma of coffee and pastries enveloped him. Laughter spilled into the street like a cozy blanket. He caught sight of the petite woman, her bright smile widening as she waved him over. Marissa, that was her name. She had a way of making everything feel lighter somehow. The cafe buzzed with energy. Tables were pushed together, and a few familiar faces from the event were already chatting, their voices mingling like a symphony. Jack felt his heart race wildly, not from fear this time but from excitement. This energy, this was what he needed. Hey there! Marissa greeted him, her voice cheerful, cutting through the chatter. Glad you made it. Come meet everyone. Jack stepped forward, a little hesitant but mostly curious, as she led him to a table. A group of parents sat around, all smiles and animated conversations. Instantly, he felt the warmth of belonging. He took a seat and was immediately welcomed into the fold. Each person shared stories of their challenges and joys, tales of parenthood that resonated deeply within him. I thought I'd never find anyone who understood the juggling act, one dad shared, gesturing animatedly. The others laughed, nodding along, echoing his sentiments. Jack felt the knot in his chest slowly untightening. As the conversations flowed, he found himself sharing snippets about Lily. She'll be 5 next month, he said, beaming at the thought. I still can't believe it. Time flies. 5? That's such a fun age. A mom exclaimed. They're starting to explore their personalities so much. Their enthusiasm filled Jack with hope. This was the connection he craved not just for himself, but for Lily too. He could see her thriving with friendships. He wanted that for her. His fear of being seen as a pretender melted away in the warmth of camaraderie. As more parents trickled in, Jack found himself sitting next to a fellow dad, Kevin, who was dishing out parenting hacks and laughing about the chaos of school pickups. You have to pick your battles. Sometimes it's just easier to let them wear dinosaur pajamas to the grocery store. Jack chuckled, enjoying the lightness of the moment. They swapped stories on video gaming strategies and lunchbox ideas, and Jack was surprised to feel an ease he hadn't known in years. He wasn't just a dad. He was a person again, part of something bigger. But as much as laughter filled the air, Jack's heart felt a twinge of something deeper. The conversations flowed effortlessly, yet he noticed something in Marissa's eyes. During moments of laughter, there were flickers of something unsaid. Her gaze had a vulnerability to it, one that mirrored his own. "Hey, can I ask you something?" She leaned in closer, her voice softening amidst the chatter. The world seemed to shrink as Jack focused on her. "What made you want to organize this meetup?" The question caught him off guard, forcing him to think. He took a breath, the weight of the evening hanging in the air. "I was tired of feeling like I was navigating this journey alone. Lily deserves a community. We all do." Her smile widened, brightening her features. "Exactly. We need connection. We need support." Their eyes locked for a moment, a spark glimmering in the space between them. Jack felt a rush. What if this was more than just a meet-up? What if they could build something meaningful together? But before he could delve deeper, an unexpected commotion erupted from the back of the cafe. A child's loud cry cut through the buzz, instantly grabbing everyone's attention. Jack turned, heart racing. Was this a sign, a shift in the atmosphere? He watched as a little boy with tousled hair ran toward the entrance, his face stricken with worry. "What's happening?" Jack's voice rose slightly as he stood up, all worries aside. As the room shifted, a collective hush fell over the crowd. What was going on? And how would this moment change the course of Jack's newly sought connections? Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he pushed through the throng that had gathered toward the boy, who was now at the door, trembling. The cafe buzzed like a live wire. Concerned whispers mixed with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee, creating an odd tension in the warmth of the place. "Where's your mom, buddy?" Jack asked gently, kneeling to the boy's level. He could see tears pooling in the child's eyes, staining his flushed cheeks. "Lost her," the boy choked out, his voice small and shaky. A wave of empathy flooded through Jack. He had been that scared child once, lost and uncertain, with no place to call home. He could feel a familiar instinct bubbling inside him. This boy needed reassurance, and he couldn't turn away. "Let us find her together," Jack offered, standing up and giving the child a comforting nudge while scanning the cafe. Norms shattered. He had a goal now. "What does she look like?" The boy's gaze darted around, searching the cafe's jam-packed tables. "She has curly hair and she's wearing a pink jacket." "All right," Jack said, nudging his way through the other parents, who instinctively parted as the tension grew. "Can you call her name?" With a soft whimper, the boy yelled, "Mom!" Jack felt time stretch as the sound echoed through the cafe. Just then, a woman rushed in from the patio, her expression frantic. Jack witnessed the moment she spotted her son. Her eyes widened with panic, then melted into relief as she rushed towards them, hugging the boy tightly. "Thank you?" she breathed, a mixture of gratitude and stress painted across her features. Jack stepped back, his heart still racing, as a few other parents began to applaud softly. A mix of relief and joy filled the room. Parents exchanged glances, some wiping away tears. In that moment, Jack realized what he craved tonight was more than just connection. It was the possibility of forging family bonds, of being part of something that mirrored his love for Lily. "Are you okay?" the boy's mom asked, pulling back to look into her son's frightened eyes. The boy nodded, still clinging to her like she was his life raft. As they rejoined the table, Jack could feel Marissa's gaze upon him. He caught her eye, and she smiled softly. "That was incredible," she whispered, leaning closer. You handled that so well. He shrugged, the warmth of her admiration wrapping around him like a cozy blanket. Just doing what's right yet, even with the glow of that moment, something nagged at him like an itch he couldn't scratch. What if this gathering could do more? What if it could be a safe haven for kids like the lost boy? Has anyone thought about starting a support group for single parents? Jack asked, glancing around at the parents. Intrigued looks and murmurs filled the table. That sounds like a great idea, Kevin chimed in. A place where the kids can play, and we can share tips on navigating the rough patches. Others began to nod, and Jack felt a flicker of hope blaze anew. This could be something significant. Let us plan on it, Marissa chimed in, excitement brightening her face. We could do weekly meetups or activities. Jack felt his pulse quicken. Out of the chaos of the evening, a new door opened. They were congregating, rallying around a cause, and he was no longer alone on this journey. But just as he started to envision the future, a shadow fell over the group. A tall man entered the cafe, eyes scanned for trouble rather than warmth, and Jack's heart dropped. Who was he, and what did he want? The laughter and hope from earlier suddenly felt fragile, as if they might shatter at any moment. What was about to unfold? Would it tear apart the community they were building, or would it bring them even closer? Jack's instincts kicked into overdrive. The man's presence was like a dark cloud settling over the cafe, crystallizing the previously joyous atmosphere into something tense and uncertain. He stood tall, arms crossed, scanning the room with cold, calculating eyes that darted from one table to the next. Everything about him screamed authority and intimidation. What do you want? Jack whispered to Marissa, who stood next to him, her previous excitement replaced by apprehension. She cast a furtive glance toward the man, a knot forming in her stomach. I'm not sure, but we should keep an eye on him, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As the man moved deeper into the cafe, heads turned to follow him. Conversations faltered, the comforting buzz of chatter dissipating like smoke. Jack felt the heat of anxiety rise within him. The community they began to form just moments ago felt like it was holding its breath. Ladies and gentlemen. The man's voice cut through the tension, loud and commanding. I'm here to discuss an upcoming initiative. Jack shared a glance with Kevin, who mirrored his concern. The man had their full attention now, and though the words about an initiative hovered in the air, Jack could almost hear the collective heartbeat of uncertainty echoing in his ears. Thank you for gathering here tonight, the man pressed on, his gaze locking on to Jack with an unsettling intensity. I've been watching this group from a distance, and I must say, it's quite heartwarming. However, he paused, letting the weight of his words settle. What you're trying to create here, support groups, playdates, might not be as beneficial as you think. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the cafe. Jack's stomach twisted. Who are you to decide that? Someone challenged from the back of the room. The person's voice quivered with defiance. The man smiled coldly, unfazed. I'm someone who has seen these efforts falter time and time again. You don't realize the risks involved with unregulated meetups. With kids involved, his voice softened, dripping with a false gentleness that sent chills down Jack's spine. You're potentially putting them in harm's way. Silence hung in the air like a spider's web, fragile and ready to snap. Jack's pulse quickened, and he took a step forward. Are you actually suggesting we don't try to connect and support each other? Jack's voice trembled, filled with a mix of anger and urgency. We're all just trying to help our kids and ourselves. The man raised an eyebrow, mildly amused yet infuriatingly dismissive. And what happens when things go wrong? A child goes missing again? Imagine the headlines. With that, he folded his arms tighter, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. Jack felt a surge of protective instinct. How could someone wield such fear, using it against the very thing they were trying to build here? The parents around him exchanged frantic glances, their faces a kaleidoscope of confusion and fear. Let us take a step back, Marissa said, her voice trembling but laced with authority. We can't let fear control us. We're strong enough to create a safe environment. We're here for each other. But Jack could see the shadows looming in the children's eyes, each of them aware of the tension. The energy shifted, uncertainty spreading like a dark fog. "Watch your backs," the man growled before turning to leave, dropping his words like a gauntlet on the community. "You'll regret this." As he exited, a moment of impotence hung in the room. Laughter had given way to fear, community was shadowed by uncertainty, and hope had soaked into the ground, leaving a bitter residue. Jack's thoughts raced. This was far from over. "I won't stand for this," Jack declared, the defiance in his voice ringing sharp. "We can't let him intimidate us. We need to take a stand even if it means confronting him again." The pulse of solidarity started to build again, albeit tentative. The parents began to murmur in agreement, their collective resolve returning. As they huddled, plotting the next step, Jack's heart raced not from fear, but anticipation. This was their fight now, and he wouldn't back down. But as he looked around, one thought gnawed at him. What if that man was not the only threat lurking in the shadows? What hidden dangers awaited them, and was this just the beginning? Jack paced the cafe floor, his thoughts echoing the disquiet that filled the room. The once vibrant space now felt like a cage, walls closing in with each passing moment. Parents whispered, children shifted uneasily in their seats, and an unshakable tension hovered, heavy like a storm cloud. "Jack, we need a plan," Marissa urged, pulling him out of his spiraling thoughts. Her eyes, wide and serious, locked onto his. "We can't just stand here. We need to show him we're united." He nodded, knowing she was right. They needed to act rather than just react. But what could they do against a man who seemed to thrive on fear? "Let us set up a meeting. A place where we can discuss our concerns more privately," Jack proposed. "If we don't gather our strength now, we'll let him win before we even begin." The group agreed, a hush of determination washing over them. Ideas flowed, fueled by shared fear but also by an emerging sense of purpose. They talked about potential venues, times, and how best to communicate with each other without drawing unwanted attention. Outside, the sun began to set, casting a warm hue through the cafe windows, contrasting the anxiety inside. But for some reason, the warmth did not penetrate the cold feeling in Jack's gut. He had this nagging sensation that this wasn't over. The man's words haunted him, "You'll regret this." What did it mean? What kind of darkness loomed just beyond the edges of their little sanctuary? "Let us not just focus on what he said," Kevin chimed in, breaking Jack's train of thought. "We have to emphasize what we can actually do for our kids. We can show him that community matters. That safety comes from people like us, looking out for each other." Jack clenched his fists, new resolve heating his core. Kevin was right. This was about resilience, about proving that together, they were more than whispers and shadows. They were a force to be reckoned with. "I think we should also reach out to others in the neighborhood," Marissa suggested. "There are parents who haven't come to meetings yet. We can create a larger support network. If we can show this man he's outnumbered, maybe he won't bother us again." Eyes widened around the table as they contemplated this effectively strengthened their bond. Raising their voices with fresh determination, they began reaching out to others, one by one. Jack felt hope surge within him, fluttering against the fear that had taken hold earlier. He watched as parents shared their stories, laughter weaving through the conversations as they started to remember what brought them together in the first place, their kids. But the moment felt too fragile, like a delicate thread they were grasping, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to act fast. What if the man was just watching from the outside? What if he had allies working silently against them? Just then, the door swung open with a sudden gust, and the familiar figure re-entered the cafe, defiant and unwelcome. Gasps echoed around the room, and Jack's heart raced. The air thickened with tension again. "Back for more, are we?" the man taunted, a smirk creeping across his face. "What do you want?" Jack called out, fighting to keep his voice steady, feeling the strength of the others rallying behind him. The man's gaze flicked over the group, his smile widening like a predator lying in wait. "Just wanting to see how this little gathering is going. I hope you take my most recent warning to heart." Jack's fists tightened. They had to confront this darkness, and somehow, They needed to find out what other threats lurked just out of sight. As the challenge began to unfold, Jack realized they were on the brink of something much bigger than he could have imagined. With his heart pounding in his chest, he stood there, ready to fight not just for his community but also for a future that was worth believing in. What would their next move be? How would they stand against the unknown? And more urgently, why did it feel like the shadows were closing in even tighter now? Jack's heart raced, each beat echoing the silent desperation around him. He had never felt more aware of the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. The man stood there, a grim specter in the doorway, basking in the fear radiating from the group. But where there was fear, there was also hope, and Jack was determined to manifest that hope into something tangible. "Get out of here!" Marissa's voice cut through the silence, sharp and unwavering. The room shifted, the walls feeling less like a cage and more like a fortress. Jack admired her bravery. "Listen to the lady," their visitor sneered, casually leaning against the door frame. "What are you all going to do? You think you can shield your kids with pretty words and community meetings? Where's your spine?" Jack felt a rush of anger. "You underestimate us," he shot back, stepping forward, fueled by the rallying spirit around him. "We're not going to let your intimidation dictate our lives. We're strong because we're standing together." A challenge flickered in the man's eyes. "Together? You think that's enough?" "It's more than enough," Jack replied, his voice steady this time. "We are not afraid of you. You may think you can threaten us, but we won tenfold." Silence enveloped them, the intensity palpable as the man held Jack's gaze. Then, with a low laugh, he raised his hands in mock surrender. "Fine, go ahead. Make your little plans. But remember, shadows have a way of creeping back in when you least expect it." As he turned to leave, a deep sense of foreboding washed over Jack. This man was not just an individual, he was a symbol of the fear that had festered in their community for too long. Jack felt resolve solidify within him. They needed to act, and they needed to act fast. With the man gone, the room seemed brighter, the air clearer. "We need to set that meeting," Jack began, meeting the gazes of the parents around him. "It's time to turn our words into action. Let us put our ideas into practice, and we'll do it tonight." Marissa, always the organized one, jumped in. "We can meet in my backyard. It's quiet and private. We'll get the word out quickly. Let us focus on building our network, finding strength in numbers." Kevin nodded vigorously. "And we should start documenting our experiences. If this guy thinks he can walk in here and threaten us without consequences, he's mistaken." As they broke off into pairs, phones in hand, Jack felt a rush of adrenaline mixing with a sense of purpose. They were no longer just defending their children. They were challenging the very notion of fear that had kept them isolated for too long. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting a fiery glow on the horizon, a promise of change. Jack paused, scanning the street. He couldn't shake the tiny nagging thought, what if the man wasn't just some lone wolf? What if he was part of something bigger? Jack's thoughts spiraled for a moment before he steeled himself. He quickly joined his neighbors back inside. The event they planned would not just be about confronting the threat, it would also be about uniting their community, strengthening the ties that had the potential to uplift them all. They were already rallying support, transforming fear into a rallying cry. As the evening grew darker, so did Jack's thoughts. Would they be enough? This battle was not merely against one man, it was against all that sought to divide them. "Let us get this started," Jack said, gathering everyone's attention. "We have lives to protect and a community to build." The room buzzed with renewed energy, the air crackling with anticipation. But as Jack looked around, the questions loomed larger. Who else was watching them? And what would they do when the next shadow approached? The night felt electric, alive with possibility, but also tinged with anxiety. Danger lurked in the periphery, and Jack steeled himself for the confrontation that could inevitably lie ahead. The backyard was aglow with string lights hanging overhead, casting a warm golden hue over familiar faces. Laughter mingled with nervous chatter, but underneath it all, an undeniable electricity thrummed through the air. Jack scanned the group gathered in Marissa's backyard. He saw fathers, mothers, and friends, all edged with a resolve he had never witnessed before. "All right, everyone," he called out, raising his voice to cut through the mingled conversations. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. Tonight, we're here to take back control of our community." A series of determined nods echoed through the crowd. Jack felt a surge of hope as he looked around. Each person there was a thread in a larger tapestry, and together they could weave something strong. We all felt the shadows creeping in, the fear lurking just beyond our doorsteps, he continued, his heart racing. But we refuse to be its victims. We're going to fight back by standing together. Marissa stood beside him, handing out homemade flyers that outlined their plans. Let us not just talk about what we want to see change. We need to make it happen. Who's in for starting a neighborhood patrol? The response was immediate and resounding. Hands shot up, signaling enthusiasm and agreement. Jack couldn't help but smile. This was more than a meeting. This was a movement, a rallying cry that could change everything. Kevin, full of excitement, chimed in. And we need to document everything. Videos, photographs, testimonies. Let the world see our unity. Let us show that we are not afraid. Together, they brainstormed strategies for outreach, pooling their resources. Ideas poured forth like a bubbling brook. They discussed setting up a neighborhood watch, organizing events to promote community involvement, and creating safe spaces for kids to gather without fear. As the fire in the makeshift pit crackled to life, casting flickering shadows, Jack felt the warmth seep into his bones. It wasn't just the flames, it was the spirit of the people around him. A deeper sense of belonging filled the gaps where fear once resided. Yet, beneath the surface of excitement, a shadow loomed larger than before. What if he comes back? A worried mother interrupted, her voice barely a whisper. What if he brings others? Jack saw the concern etched on faces that were once bright with hope. A weight settled in his stomach, and he understood their fears. They were real and tangible. But he also knew they had to confront these truths head-on. Let me be clear, he began, leaning forward. We will prepare ourselves for anything. We will build our support not only to guard against threats but to stand as a testament to our resilience. If he wants a fight, he'll soon learn that we are ready. The group collectively inhaled, a unity of breath that seemed to still the air momentarily. Jack's heart surged with something new, a fierce determination, an anchor in stormy seas. But as cheers erupted around him, a voice pierced through the celebration. You think that's enough? It was a chilling whisper carried by the evening breeze. Jack froze, the joy draining momentarily from the atmosphere. Who's there? Marissa demanded, her eyes darting to the shadows beyond the light. Jack felt his pulse quicken again. Remember, shadows have a way of creeping back, the voice taunted, echoing the earlier threat. Jack clenched his jaw and looked around at the determined faces surrounding him. They weren't backing down. But now, a different kind of tension filled the air, one that hinted at the very confrontation they had been preparing for. Stay close, Jack urged the group. We're ready to face whatever comes our way. As the darkness deepened, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the brink of something monumental. They had taken their first steps toward reclaiming their home, but the true battle was just beginning. Would they be able to hold their ground? What awaited them in the sweeping shadows? The resolve in Jack's heart tightened. He wouldn't let fear dictate their lives any longer. The night crackled with uncertainty, but beneath it all lay the undeniable force of a united community bent on standing against the darkness. They were just beginning to fight back. What would the next confrontation reveal? Jack's heart raced, the chilling voice still echoing in his mind. The crowd around him shifted nervously, glancing into the looming darkness. He could feel the palpable tension as they moved closer together, forming a tight-knit circle. Marissa stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination, defying the shadow lurking at the periphery. Don't let fear take hold, she called out, her voice strong and unwavering. We stand together. And we will not be intimidated. With renewed energy, Kevin began passing out flashlights, flickering beams slicing through the musty air. The light brought a comfort that the darkness tried to steal away. Jack took a deep breath, refoking the initial surge of hope. They were a community, armed with more than just flashlights and words. They had each other. "Remember why we're here," Jack said, trying to ground them. "Fear loses strength when we come together. We know our neighborhood better than anyone. Let us shine a light on the corners that worry us most. Let us show that we're not just numbers in a fear-driven narrative." As the group split into smaller teams, Jack paired with Marissa and Kevin. They moved toward the dark edge of the yard, where the wind whispered unsettling secrets. Jack's pulse quickened as they stepped beyond the soft, golden glow of the backyard lights. He could feel the raw energy crackling around them, but also the weight of every unspoken worry that clung to the air. "Just keep in close contact," Marissa reminded, glancing nervously into the thickening shadows. "If anything feels off, we regroup." Their footsteps crunched on dried leaves, a sound so ordinary yet strangely amplified in the dark. Jack assessed every sound, every rustle of branches. The world felt alive, but he clung to the hope that they would emerge stronger. "I think we should set up patrol points," Kevin suggested, his voice trembling slightly. "That way, we can keep an eye on multiple areas and we can communicate if something happens." "Great idea. Let us secure that side of the street first," Jack urged, feeling the excitement and determination swell again within him. "We'll show he isn't welcome here." As they shifted into formation, a flicker of movement caught Jack's attention from the corner of his eye. He turned sharply, his heart stopping as he saw a shadow dart between two houses. The breath caught in his throat. "Did you see that? Hurry! Over there!" Marissa pointed, her voice urgent. Without hesitation, they moved toward the alleyway, silent but alert. All at once, instincts took priority. Their hands tightened around the flashlights, fingers ready to call for each other if anything felt wrong. In the narrow passage, shadows rushed past like ghosts, fading in and out of sight. Jack's mind raced, heart thundering. It wasn't just about confronting an unknown threat anymore, it was about protecting their home, their families. "Let us spread out a bit, stay aware," he whispered, their eyes searching everywhere. Every flicker of movement sent a jolt of energy through them, but the deeper they went, the more they felt the weight of their own fears grazing their backs. He had to steady himself, reminding each of them that it was okay to be scared, it was okay to feel that adrenaline pumping. But fear couldn't define them. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted behind them. The sound ricocheted off the buildings, tearing through their quiet resolve. "What was that?" Kevin gasped, his eyes wide with alarm. "Back together, now!" Jack commanded, rushing toward the noise. The regret of leaving their circle sank into his gut, urgency fueling his strides. Something wasn't right. As they converged, adrenaline surged. They couldn't turn back now, their home needed them to stay strong. What they would find around the bend, in that sharp, relentless darkness, could change everything. Would they be ready for whatever it was? Jack's fingers tightened again around the flashlight as they moved forward. Yet lurking in the shadows, an eerie silence hinted at an unexpected twist that would test their unity and reveal truths they weren't ready to accept. The moment Jack rounded the bend, the scene unfolded like a twisted nightmare. A group of teenagers loomed close to the back alley, their voices echoing with cruel laughter, each syllable slicing through the night air. In their hands they held spray paint cans, shaking them menacingly while another one kicked a trash can, sending it crashing to the ground. Jack's gut twisted. This wasn't just vandalism, it was an assault on their community, on everything they had just worked to build. "Hey!" Jack shouted, voice booming through the tension. The laughter froze instantly. All eyes turned toward him, a mix of surprise and defiance in their stares. He could see their bravado faltering, and their posture shifted from playful to defensive. "Just some harmless fun," one of them sneered, raising the paint can like a weapon. Jack felt the heat of commitment surge through him again. "Not in our neighborhood," he declared, stepping forward, heart pounding like a thunder drum. "You think this is a joke? You're scaring families. You need to leave." The teenagers exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their bravado. Jack sensed the shift, He was no longer just standing alone. Marissa and Kevin were right behind him, a wall of solidarity that surged outwards. "Yeah, leave," Marissa echoed, her voice unwavering. "You don't belong here, and we're not going to let you ruin it for everyone." Jack locked eyes with one of the older teens, sensing his calculated confidence beginning to waver. "You really want to do this?" Jack pressed, willing the boy to see that their unity could easily sweep aside any false bravado. "You've got two choices. You can walk away, or we can make this about more than words. I'll stand here with my friends, and we won't budge." The air grew electric, a charged battlefield in a quiet neighborhood. He could feel the tension simmering, and for a brief moment, he saw doubt flash across the faces of the teens. Ultimately, one of them tossed the spray can to the ground in surrender. "Let us go," he muttered, voice low, and the others filed away, their fear finally pulling them back from the brink. As silence returned to the alley, Jack felt a rush of accomplishment wash over him. They had stood together, confronted the fear head-on. In that moment, he realized their bond had deepened, fashioned from fire and resolve. "Wow," Kevin breathed, eyes reflecting disbelief and admiration. "That was incredible." "Yeah. I didn't think you'd stand up to them like that," Marissa added, looking at him with a spark of something softer, a growing admiration. Jack shook his head slightly, trying to process the rush of emotion. "It was all of us together. I've learned that fear loses power when we lean on each other." The night air felt lighter, even the shadows shifted, conceding to their fervor. They regrouped, sharing stories, laughter, and possibilities. They were shifting the narrative, channeling every moment of fear into resilience, every clash with darkness into alliance. Back in the backyard, once tensions subsided, a warmth settled as Jack and the others returned, sharing their triumph. Voices lifted, plans solidified. Ideas morphed into actionable goals. Meetups became a regular occurrence, safety protocols discussed, and their mission of unity blazed brightly. "We can do this," Kevin said, his excitement infectious. "This is just the beginning." Marissa chimed in, "Who's with me on getting our kids involved? We can blend fun and safety. Our nights could be a hit." And just like that, infused with newfound optimism, they began brainstorming ways to bond the community even further. Jack's heart swelled with gratitude and hope. Not just for tomorrow or the day after, but for the life his family, and their newfound family, were forging together. As the night deepened, laughter danced in the air, mingling with shadows until it transformed them into something softer. Jack looked around, each face lit by hope, a tapestry of resilience woven with threads of love, courage, and unwavering friendship. In that moment, the reality dawned on him. They had taken their stand against fear, and that stand had become an unbreakable foundation. It wasn't just about protecting their neighborhood. It was about creating a community where each person felt valued, heard, and safe. When the stars began to twinkle above, Jack didn't just see points of light. He saw dreams for their children, laughter shared over summertime barbecues, and friendships forged in the warmth of unity. What's next? He found himself asking, and he couldn't help but smile at the excitement that rippled through the group. That night, they had transformed fear into action and isolation into connection. Their feet might have been planted on solid ground, but together they were soaring, ready for whatever came next. And as they packed up and exchanged goodnights, Jack felt a gentle nudge in his heart. Above all else, they had proven that together, they could create light even in the darkest corners. Join us on this journey. Let us keep building our community. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support, so don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.